Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are breaking down a playbook for what is, let's be honest, one of the most nerve-wracking conversations in modern dating. This whole strategy comes from the work of Gambit, and it's all about how to handle one single moment, a moment that can change absolutely everything.
So the source asks you to picture this. You're with someone, everything feels perfect, the vibe is there, the intimacy is at an all-time high, and then, out of nowhere, that one little question drops right into the middle of a perfect moment. The source doesn't pull any punches here. It calls this an ambush, plain and simple. It's that moment where your adrenaline just spikes, and whatever you say off the cuff, completely unplanned, could have massive consequences for where things go from here. Okay, so let's get into the actual playbook. First, we'll look at what the relationship ambush really is. Then, we're going to decode what's actually being asked. After that, we'll get into the three-step gambit, show you how to execute the play, and wrap it all up with the frame control mindset that makes the whole thing work.
All right, first up, the relationship ambush. The big idea here is that it doesn't really matter how the question is asked. The underlying intent, the challenge it represents, it's almost always the exact same thing.
So the source lumps all these together and calls them the 7 deadliest questions. And look, they're not called deadly just because of the words, it's because they are strategically deployed, usually for maximum emotional impact, to put you on the spot when you are least expecting it. It's a total trap. Okay, this next part is maybe the most crucial thing to understand. The source is very clear. You are not entering a logical, informational discussion. No. This is all about persuasion. It's about emotion. And this slide just perfectly illustrates that point. What's being said on the surface is just a cover for what's really happening underneath. The goal isn't to win an argument with facts. The real goal is to change a feeling, to manage a mood. So, if you know you're walking into this high-stakes emotional ambush, how in the world are you supposed to respond? Well, the source says you absolutely do not give a spontaneous answer. Instead, you use a prepared 3-part tactical plan. And the sequence here is everything. You see, you don't just answer the question. Step 1, you buy yourself some time and you take control of the conversation's frame. Step 2, you use that time to figure out what you actually want, your objective. And only then, step 3, do you deliver a carefully thought out, strategic response. Let's get into the execution. This whole strategy really comes down to how quickly you can decide on your goal, and the source makes this simple by breaking down all the possible outcomes into what it calls the 3 buckets. So this table is pretty much your cheat sheet. You can see right here, depending on your goal, if you want to keep things the same, see less of the person, or see more of them, your entire tactic and even the key phrases you use are going to change pretty dramatically. Now, according to the source, this is by far the trickiest path. Why? Because you have to give a response that's reassuring, but at the same time, totally non-committal. It's a really delicate balance where you can't give up any ground.
This opening line right here is designed to do 2 things instantly. First, it makes the conversation feel positive, right? I love that we can talk about this. But second, and this is the key part, it reframes her question as proof that she's the one who's more invested, which subtly shifts the power dynamic right back to you. For this goal, things get a lot more direct. The advice here is to avoid any complicated moves. Instead, you just go with clear, kind phrases that basically send the message without you having to spell it out. A line like this is apparently super effective because it's impossible to misunderstand, but it's not cruel. It clearly communicates a boundary and shuts down any talk of escalating things. It basically ends the conversation right there. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this one's easy. But the source actually says, hold on, not so fast. Even if you want the same thing she does, coming across as too eager or anxious can actually weaken your position. So why is this response so powerful? Because it validates her feelings, it shows her you're on the same page, but you're still composed. It suggests that, yeah, you've been thinking about the future too, which turns it into a mutual decision instead of you just giving in. Okay, finally, let's zoom out and look at the core philosophy that makes all of these tactics tick. Every script, every line we just went over, it's all just an application of one central concept that the source calls frame control. So the theory is pretty simple. In any conversation, one person's point of view, their frame, is going to be the dominant one. When she asks the question, she sets the frame. The entire goal of this playbook, starting with that first step of buy time, is to break her frame and establish your own. You know, this isn't just about saying the right words. It's about having the right mindset. It's about being prepared,
understanding the emotional subtext. But here's the kicker. The source argues that to really maintain your frame, you have to have this almost Zen-like willingness to walk away from the whole thing.
So, at the end of the day, this entire playbook leaves us with a pretty provocative question. Is this just a system for manipulation and control, something designed to let you win a conversation? Or is it something else? Is it maybe just a new, more strategic language for navigating the messy, unspoken rules of modern relationships? That's definitely something to think about.